Okay.
It's gonna be fun.
So,
All right. Welcome.
yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. All right.
What are we doing, Spencer?
Good question. Okay, so what we're doing is this is our very first attempt at this, but we decided that we were going to just get together and have some conversations of some of the things that we've experienced over the past. And so, as Rachel and I have this conversation, we have come up with the name of Mirrors and Triggers. Can you want to explain a little bit as to why we went that direction?
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of background on who we are first, maybe.
All right.
I am a functional trainer, and a lot of what I do every day is talking to clients on how to face their fears and how to realize what's in front of them and to realize who they truly are in spite of and because of everything that's going around in their environment. So, in talking to Spencer, he literally called me up last week, right?
Right.
And said, hey, I have this idea. So here we go, because we are in this world of trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that's the journey for all of us. So mirrors are the reflection of who we are, whether it's a reverse reflection or a straight on reflection. In my belief paradigm, reflection and mirrors is something that we see in every single person that comes into our lives. So, and then going into triggers, more so what triggers us, right? We've all been triggered. We all know what that feels like when someone says something and you kind of like get a tightening in your jaw and your neck, and you lunge at someone. Even if you're not doing it physically, you do it mentally, and you're just aggravated usually.
That's me all
it
the time.
it definitely evokes emotions inside of you. And so we want to talk about that, because becoming a whole person is allowing others to not affect your course. So of course you have those people that are near you and will affect you, right?
Mhm.
Spouses or children or parents, and they will take their place. But in general society, in dating specifically, what we're going to get into, trying to understand where the other person is and where you are and how you meet in the middle.
And here's the other thing that I think is fun, is let's talk a little bit about how we met, and I'll give you a little bit about my background. My background is I've done a lot of things wrong, and so I can really share what not to do, and things that I've learned. And Rachel and I met probably, 2.5 years ago.
Years ago.
And that was, so I'll just give you a little bit of background about my journey, because this really is more a conversation about the journeys that we've had, and the things that we've learned along the way. And for me, the majority of it is things that I learned by doing it wrong. And the other thing is, as I speak to some of my friends, I have a lot of friends that have talked to me in the past about some of the relationships that they're in, and they ask questions as to why is this guy or why is this girl doing certain things. And for me, every time I get out of a relationship, I try to assess what I learned or what I needed to learn out of that one. And so many times when these conversations come around, they ask why certain things are being done or why guys are acting a certain way. And I can give a pretty honest answer, because that was me. A lot of the times, some of these things that individuals are doing in the relationships are things that I did in the relationship or I did in a relationship, and it wasn't healthy. So my background, and I think here's something else, is this is unscripted. We're not going to chop it up or edit it too much, but for me, I've been, and I guess I want to say we're going to be probably more vulnerable than
Then not. We're
Yeah,
gonna tell it how it is.
which is a little scary. I mean, the reality is that's a little bit scary. So, my story is I have, unfortunately, or maybe it's fortunately, because I learned a lot, but I have been divorced twice now. Recently, having gotten out of a second marriage, but I was divorced from the mother of my children about a little over 4 years ago. And I have 4 kids with her, and had a very interesting experience as we went through that. We did traveling across the country to see kids. We didn't have the easiest of journeys through the divorce process as families got involved and attorneys and court, and that drug out for nearly 2 years. And so that was an interesting experience that probably took me to some of the lowest lows that I have ever felt in my life. And the journey, there's ups and downs. There were times when things were amazing, even though everything was falling apart around me, and it was because I personally was in a better spot. I lived in a trailer on the streets in Orlando for a period of time, 6 months, as I was trying to save my money to fly across the country to see my kids. And so, I mean, I literally went from married in a big home with a wife and kids to divorced, kids living 2,000 miles away, living in a trailer on the streets in Orlando. And I loved it, actually. It was a really good experience. And then I've gone through some relationships with individuals along the way, and I learned a lot. And I think for me, it took me a year to realize that I wasn't okay. Right? Everybody gets out of relationships and they're like, no, I'm good, I'm ready to move forward. And it took me a year to realize that I wasn't ready to move forward. And then I started doing a little bit more work. I did some work, but I started doing a little bit more work. And I think it was about that time that you and I met. Mm-hmm. And then we've stayed in contact since then, off and on. And since then, I went through a shorter second marriage. Learned a lot from that, and I'm sure that we'll have lots of great things that we can discuss about that. But that's a little bit about my journey. I have also recently relocated to live closer to my kids. We lived in Florida. They moved to the Mountain West, and so it took me a couple of years. But now I live a mile and a half from my kids, which it's a interesting and different experience from what I was doing. You know, getting on a plane and flying multiple times a month to see them. So that's a little bit about, I guess, my background. Do you want to give a little bit about your background?
I said that I was a functional trainer. I am also a self-love coach. Real love coach is what that really is. And a self-proclaimed gutologist. And that just means I've studied the gut extensively, and that's where I help people start their healing. My personal background, I was with the father of my children. I have 3 children for 17 years. And it did not end well about 4 years ago, and we had to go our separate ways. And really, this coming together between Spencer and I, when we met, I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag, we met by going on a date. So clearly that didn't work out between us. We were both in places of needing to heal, and I think that's why we're coming together now, is to talk about that healing and
right.
The journeys that we had and how that affected moving forward in our lives, but also the friendship that we gained in meeting each other, saying yes to that date, and Spencer just out of the blue saying, hey Rachel, you look interesting, let's go. And we had a lot of fun.
It was fun. It was a group date.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun, and now we have forged this lifelong friendship. And now we're doing a podcast together.
Yeah.
We've kept in touch over the last 2.5 years, and it's really turned into a good friendship of being open and honest with each other and being able to lean on each other and hear what's going on in each other's lives and try to help the other person through that as best we can.
Yeah.
Right? But using principles that we know. We're both avid readers, and we both want to be the best people that we can be. And we both seem to be the person that a lot of other people come to when they have questions. And maybe it's because we kind of live life out loud and fall on our face in front of others.
Yeah.
And so they go, hey, I watched you do that. Tell me how to do it better. And that's okay. We're willing to be those people, apparently.
Right.
So that's what we're here to do. Is we've fallen on our face. We want to share our experiences. We want to share maybe the wisdom that we have from those experiences and from the knowledge that we've gained by trying to make ourselves better.
Yeah, and I think probably, and this goes with any relationship, friendship, dating relationship, siblings, parents, whatever. But I think vulnerability creates connection, and being vulnerable. I can tell you that I was not vulnerable in my first marriage at all. I kept everything inside. And that was something that I've been working on. And so as I start to open up about some of my stories and some of my experiences, I think other people can relate to that. And therefore they're willing to have those questions, right? And those conversations. I do want to add something here. So I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you do. Maybe not. But so Rachel helped me. This was, I think I was probably about 2 years after the separation and then the divorce of my first marriage, and I was carrying around a lot of anger for the person I was married to. Not so much for her, but it was for her family members. And some of the things that I had to experience as I went through that I felt was really dishonest, and I struggled a lot with that. I carried that burden around for a long time, and we got on the phone one time. Do you remember this at all?
As soon as you move forward with this, I'm sure I'll remember.
So I was in Florida. And we got on the phone, and she walked me through a visualization about letting go of some of this anger. And I remember it now. I mean, you do this all the time, but for me, at first I thought it was a little bit fruity, I'll be honest with you.
A lot of people do. That's the funny part.
Like, all right, I'll try it. And we did this visualization, and she walked me through this, and I was able to take some of these feelings and this anger and stuff that I had towards some of these individuals, and I was able to let go of them. She helped me process through them, and I can't say that the next day I immediately felt better. I didn't jump up and say, hey, great. But I noticed that slowly after that, things started to get better. I slowly started to realize that color started to come back into my life a little bit more. The anger had started to go away slowly, and now as we go through this, and we've had multiple conversations where you can tell that there's things that are triggering me.
We had one yesterday.
We have them on a regular basis, but the thing now is I can start to recognize those and start to process through those, where in the past I just kept them inside, or I would just suck the energy out of the room because I was angry at life or angry at a certain person or individual for things that I felt that they have done to me. And I think for me, one of the biggest things as I go through, and we had a conversation recently about this, is looking at my last relationship. There were some things that were said that kind of hurt, and but they were true, which sucks because they were right on. It just hurt to hear it. But being able to step back and have somebody that you could talk to, and then they say, yeah, well, you know what, that there's some truth to that. And so that's how I try to now go about when I get triggered, try to understand what the truth is. Generally, I'm getting triggered for something that is true. The truth hurts, and therefore, when we hear something like that, we have to do something about it. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to fix it? Are we going to bury it? Are we going to let it take our control from us?
Right.
So
Yeah.
anyways.
Mirrors are more of a process for ourselves, right?
Right.
Triggers are when someone else comes in. The trigger is definitely a truth, and that's why it hurts so bad. The delivery isn't even that bad usually.
Right.
Just someone saying something, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Grr!" That felt like a dagger going in. What was that? That sucked. So moving past that.
One thing, can I hop in on this?
Yes,
I
please.
wanted to write it down, but I'll just talk about it. So you just commented on a word that I think we can talk about here is the delivery, right?
Mm-hmm.
In every relationship, in every conversation, there's the delivery, and then there's the reception of it.
Mm-hmm.
And many times the delivery isn't. It's not well, for me, I never deliver it very well. That's something that I'm working on. But usually people deliver stuff, and it's really not. Well, maybe it is intentional, but there's a delivery, and then my responsibility isn't how the other person delivers something. Right? That's their responsibility.
Right.
My responsibility is how I'm going to receive that.
Right.
And there were many times that I've had conversations with people where I had the real intention of delivering it in a healthy way, but I didn't do it the way that I had hoped.
Lots of times that happens because there's emotions on both sides, right?
That's
and
fair, right?
Oh, that didn't come out right.
It didn't come out right. And so, I mean, I can say from experience where I've delivered things where I really tried to do it the best that I knew how. Unfortunately, that wasn't very well.
Right.
But it was received in the worst way it could have been received, and then that's the complication for a very big mess.
Right.
In the relationship. And yeah, so you got the delivery and the reception, and we're responsible for how we deliver it, not how they delivered it, and we're responsible for how we receive it, not how they receive it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So
We all have to stay in our lane and take ownership of our own stuff. We got this.
So let's see, what else? We wanted to talk about some of the future topics.
Yeah, what this is really going to be about. We named it Mirrors and Triggers on purpose because this is what's happening in our life. There's how many podcasts out there, how many books, how many everything, and people are still fumbling. You and I, we're still fumbling.
Well, sure.
We're all still fumbling, and we hit it already. Vulnerability leads to connection, but connection is how you really gain a relationship.
Right.
Whether it's going to be a friendship or a romantic endeavor, either way, you have to have this vulnerability and this coming together. So that's really where I think we're moving towards being able to be authentic and be who you are and show your true self and come together with someone else who's doing the same thing and be able to seek out those people who are doing that.
Right.
Because I think a lot of us are finding
Well,
ones who aren't.
yeah, there's a lot of unhealthy running around, and that was me, and at times still me.
Right.
And I think, one of the reasons that we're doing this is we're not experts in anything. I'm not an expert in anything. Rachel's more of an expert than me, but I can be real, and I can share, and I have a really interesting story to the way that I grew up. That I think is a little bit different, but I also think is pretty relatable. And so this really is having a real conversation between people that have walked down the road and still working, through their own stuff as we move forward. And then one other thing that you just mentioned is you said, as you're working through friendships or relationships, and the reality is hopefully it's both.
Right.
Hopefully you are friends with the person that you're getting to know, and I can give you lots of examples of what not to do to have a relationship fall apart or whatever.
Come together and fall apart very
Yes,
quickly.
I mean, speaking about rushing into things and why we rush into things and just stuff like that, I have plenty of experience there. So that'll be fun.
I think a lot of people do though.
Yeah.
And it's hard to not play the blame game coming out of that.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people do. And we want to come from a different place. It's easier to go, well, that person, right? Well, if that didn't happen to me. And I think we both want to come to a place where we want to own our things and go, okay, I'm in control of me. I'm going to bring me to the table. Hopefully that other person is going to bring themselves to the table. And if we can be vulnerable and connect, great. If not, you served a different purpose in my life.
Right. I think Rachel actually told me something when we met long ago, and I always remembered this, and I thought it was good. You'll probably. But
I love how many things you remember.
I know, crazy, right? I actually listened. So she said that people come into your life for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime. And so as I go through and I create friendships and I'm in relationships, I try to identify what's the reason, or is this just for a season, and sometimes you are brought into people's lives to help them, and sometimes they're brought into your life to help you, and then sometimes it's mutually exclusive, and sometimes it's for a period of time, and sometimes it's a lifetime, but it could be a friendship, it could be something else. But I thought that was always something you said, that when I met somebody, I was looking for, especially when it fell apart, or whatnot, what was the reason, what did I learn from, how can I take this and move forward, so that I can now show up better next time, or whatever. So.
It's one of my favorites because that's how I look at every single person, even someone that I wave to on the street or talk to on the phone or whatever. It's now in my subconscious that I am looking for, why are we connecting? What was the purpose of that? If someone waves to me on the street, it was to bring a smile to my face, right? And to bring a smile to their face. Great. Everybody needs that during the day. So being able to see the little things that are happening in your life. Because those are blessings if you can recognize them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we know what we're about, right?
I think so. Well, we're trying.
We're just asking everyone who's interested to have a conversation with us and see if we can all learn together.
And one thing I wanted to add here, and I think we're probably going to wrap this one up pretty soon, but one thing I wanted to add is if there's a question or a comment or a topic that you would like us to dig into, you can email us, mirrorsandtriggers@gmail.com, and or you can leave a comment, and that helps us identify what are the conversations that we want to have. And in the future, we will most likely invite people to have conversations with us, individuals that just have experiences that we would like to have them share, or individuals that have expertise in certain areas that they can kind of help us. So,
Awesome.
anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Are we good?
Next one. Next.
Uh.
All right. Let's do this thing.
All right. How are we gonna get started? Are you gonna bounce up and down the entire time?
I'm hoping not to. Just do this to me if I start moving. Or say it out loud and we'll just address it, like mirrors and triggers. I don't know, I just shoot from the hip all the time.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so
Figured it's gonna be a crapshoot anyway.
you're absolutely right.
Okay, have we been recording already?
Uh-huh.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Gives us stuff to work with.
What's gonna be the best part? If I start laughing, I could just like
Just
catch
fall
me if
over.
I'm falling.
We'll make sure that we slow motion that.
We'll have outtakes.
Yeah, right. We don't have to do it today, but
Is that just this? See how it's kind of slanted? Is that gonna matter? Does it look slanted to you? No, just looks slanted to me.